Revealed, 11 bone-chilling tales of haunting horror from 2025. Discover the eerie secrets. Emma stood in the heart of Ridgewood, a small suburb quiet enough that whispers felt like claps of thunder. She had left chaos in her wake, searching for clarity among the neatly trimmed hedges and brick houses that marked this new life. Little did she know, hidden beneath the town's serene facade lurked stories worse than her own. As she settled into her role as the new literature teacher at Ridgewood High, Emma's curiosity tugged at her. One fateful afternoon, she wandered into the local library, a charming, brick building that felt like a portal to forgotten worlds. Dust floated in the sunlight streaming through tall windows, and the musty smell of old pages wrapped around her like a warm blanket, but it quickly chilled her heart when she stumbled upon an ancient archive in the back. There they were, newspaper clippings, letters, and journals, the haunting tales of 11 encounters with the supernatural, each more alarming than the last. The first tale sent shivers down her spine. It described echoes of a ghostly girl wandering near the old oak tree, her cries mingling with the rustling leaves, summoning a strange wind that only the town's wealthiest could afford to ignore. The next account told of lights flickering violently in the homes of those who dared oppose the town council, creating an illusion of madness among the vulnerable. Emma's heart raced. Could these be mere urban legends, or were they cloaked truths stealthily revealing a dark conspiracy woven through the fabric of Ridgewood? She shared these eerie stories in class, and the atmosphere shifted dramatically. Some students scoffed like Felix, the tech whiz with an eye roll for everything supernatural. Others, like Marisol, who clutched her grandmother's amulet tight, hung on every word with trepidation sparkling in her wide eyes. The tales sparked intense classroom debates, revealing fractures within their once simple lives. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As days passed and their fascination grew, so did the bizarre occurrences around them. Books flew from shelves seemingly on command, shadows darted past out of the corners of their eyes. It felt like Ridgewood was holding its breath, a seemingly perfect community unraveling at its seams. Old family feuds reignited, gossip pinched the air like lightning about who was cursed, and those who dared to believe found themselves perched on a precipice of fear and disbelief. Caught within this storm, Emma felt an undeniable connection to these stories, especially when an old locket, a family heirloom, resurfaced from her belongings. The faded photograph within the faces haunted her. She learned her ancestors were part of the town's dark legacy. Suddenly, Emma was not just an observer, she was entwined in a fight against the malevolent forces stirring in the shadows. With the eccentric librarian beside her, together they ignited a flicker of resistance in Ridgewood. The lines drawn between fear and bravery blurred as paranormal terror turned palpable, leaving them all breathless. But shadows shifted, whispers grew louder, and the town was on the verge of confronting its darkest fears. Just when Emma thought she was grasping the threads of truth, a chilling realization hit. An unspeakable betrayal tied her family to the elite, hidden deep within Ridgewood's twisted history. The whispers echoed ominously, some secrets are meant to stay buried. As night descended and the clock struck midnight, Emma felt the weight of blood and betrayal tighten around her throat. What horrors would unfold next? The once inviting street of Ridgewood now felt like a labyrinth designed to ensnare Emma. As she navigated through the silence, the feeling of eyes watching her prickled at the back of her neck. It was a deep-rooted fear, the kind that crept up on you, uninvited, echoing the stories she'd uncovered. The sun was low on the horizon, casting long shadows that twisted into sinister shapes. Emma's heart thudded in anticipation as she approached the old oak tree. The very spot where, according to the ghostly tales, the spirit of the girl still lingered. She hesitated, memories of her ancestors flooding back with each step. What had they done to deserve such a haunting? Would the ghost show her the truth, or was this a path filled with more dread? Clenching the locket in her pocket, she stepped closer, expecting a ghostly apparition, but the air remained still. Suddenly, the branches rattled, and the wind picked up, sending leaves spiraling into the air. Emma gasped as a cold gust brushed past her, carrying with it a faint whisper, "Emma." It was chillingly soft, yet it felt deeply intimate, echoing with urgency. Was it a warning or a beckoning? Confused, she glanced around, but only shadows stood in her midst. The wind died down, replaced by an unsettling silence that thrummed in her ears. Just as she turned to leave, a rustling sound erupted from the underbrush. Emma's breath quickened. There, half hidden behind the gnarled roots of the oak, lay a small, dusty journal, its leather binding cracked and stained. With trembling fingers, she picked it up, her instincts shouting at her to run. But curiosity had always driven her. It wouldn't stop now. The pages were yellow with age, filled with sharp, hurried scrawls that danced across the paper. They told a story of a family much like hers, intertwined with the town's elite, a tale of betrayal and sacrifice. The last entry sent a chill coursing down her spine. The price of knowledge is blood. They will come for us. Emma's heart raced. Who were they? And who had been sacrificed? An icy grip of fear wrapped around her throat as she felt the unseen weight of Ridgewood's haunted past press down on her. The journal contained vital clues, but it also seemed to cast a dark shadow over her fate. With each word she read, the pull of Ridgewood's secrets deepened, threatening to ensnare her just like it had her family. As she turned to leave the oppressive air of the old oak, a chilling scream pierced the night. It came from the direction of the school, a sound so raw and filled with terror, it felt like a stab to her gut. Emma ran, adrenaline flooding her system, the journal clutched tightly to her chest, her heart pounding a chaotic rhythm. What had she unleashed? As the shriek echoed through the otherwise silent town, she knew this was only the beginning. The stakes were rising, and unseen eyes were fixed on her. Determined to uncover the twisted history that haunted her bloodline and the town, Emma pushed forward, knowing the truth might just be lurking in the darkness ahead. And as the school loomed closer, the shadow of dread lingered. What awaited her in the heart of Ridgewood High? Would the screams lead her to answers or plunge her deeper into the terror? Emma was about to find out. The school stood tall and foreboding, its once grand facade now cloaked in shadows. Emma could feel the pulse of the night, echoing with a relentless rhythm of dread. Each step towards the entrance felt like an invocation, a beckoning to face whatever horrors lay inside. Breathless, she paused at the door, the ancient wood splintered and worn, stained with years of neglect and mystery. The scream had faded, but the echo vibrated in her mind, a cruel reminder of what she might find. With a deep, shuddering breath, she pushed the door open, the rusty hinges groaning in protest as if warning her to turn back. The interior of Ridgewood High was dark, lit only by flickering lights that cast eerie shadows across the walls. Hallways wound like a snake through the building, each corner hiding potential nightmares that clawed at her sanity. Emma gripped the journal tightly, its pages crinkling under her tense fingers. It felt like her only armor against the unknown. As she stepped further inside, a chill enveloped her, thicker than the autumn air. The silence was heavy, pregnant with anticipation. She turned a corner and found herself in the main hallway, where lockers stood as silent sentinels. The faint scent of mildew mixed with something else, something metallic that sent her heart racing. Her eyes darted around, searching for signs of life or the source of that horrible scream. Just when she thought she was alone, she caught sight of something out of the corner of her eye. A shadow flickered and then disappeared around the far end of the hallway. "Hello?" Emma called, her voice echoing against the walls, low and shaky. "Is anyone there?" Nothing answered, just the relentless stillness that made her skin crawl. She took a hesitant step forward, moving towards where she had seen the shadow. The air grew colder, nipping at her skin as if the building itself was breathing down her neck, exhaling a chilling mist that reeked of despair. Emma turned her attention back to the journal. Was there something inside that could help her make sense of this place? She flipped it open, her fingers trembling over the ink-stained pages. The words swirled before her, each line filled with encrypted warnings and curses. "They cannot rest until the truth is spilled," one passage read, the urgency in the handwriting intensifying. "The school holds the key, but it seeks a toll." Heart racing, Emma looked up again, scanning every inch of the hallway. What toll? What sacrifices had been made here? Was the scream a warning for her to leave, or something far more sinister? A loud bang reverberated from behind her, making her leap back. Turning sharply, she saw a figure standing at the end of the hall, a silhouette against the fading light. Frozen in place, she caught her breath, her pulse hammering in her ears. It moved closer, shifting from shadow to form, its shape barely illuminated. Emma's instincts screamed at her to run, but her feet felt rooted to the spot. There was something familiar about the figure, and as it stepped into the light, her breath caught. "Emma," a voice whispered inside her mind, eerily familiar but twisted, impossibly recognizable yet wrong. Suddenly, a rush of memories flooded her, laughter, moments shared, an unbearable ache of loss. The connection felt real, profound. But the malevolence surrounding it made her heart pound louder, drowning out all rational thought. "Why have you come here?" The figure spoke, its voice soft yet threaded with darkness. "You shouldn't have opened the journal." Emma felt the weight of hundreds of eyes watching her from the shadows. Who was this figure? And just as suddenly, a new scream echoed, this time louder, sharper, splitting through the suffocating air. Emma flinched, the terrifying sound slicing through her resolve. What had she inadvertently unearthed? In that moment, reality began to unravel, splitting wide open like the pages of the journal. The truth was deeper, darker, and looming ever closer. As she backed away, the realization hit her: this wasn't merely history she was probing into. This was a reckoning. And with every breath, she could feel time stretching, the past hungry for retribution. What truths awaited deeper within the depths of Ridgewood High? And would they extract a heavier cost than she was ever prepared to pay? The figure's mouth moved, but the words warped into a haunting echo as the shadows in the hallway thickened. Emma felt corners of her mind unraveling. She took another step back, her heart pounding like a relentless drum. "Don't you remember?" the figure pressed, its voice tinged with urgency. "You can't leave until you remember, until you understand." Each word laced with an undertone of desperation, twisted. What comes next? Emma's throat went dry. Suddenly, the images cluttering her thoughts sharpened into focus. A school dance, the sound of laughter, a promise made under a flickering disco ball. She couldn't reason with herself. What did it matter now? The weight of the past bore down on her, she could almost feel it in her bones. I am just trying to figure out what happened here," she stammered, her breaths coming in ragged gasps. The journal felt heavier, its pages whispering secrets only she could hear, growing more insistent with each tremor in her hand. The figure flickered, morphing slightly as it stepped forward, merging with the shadows. "The truth, it hungers for you. For closure." Emma turned the journal toward her, desperately scanning the frantic scrawl. Closure? What does that even mean? Suddenly, the dark hallway erupted with sound, a cacophony of lost voices, phrases tumbling into each other. "He betrayed us. She left us. We are trapped." The screams melted into one chilling chorus, clubs of sorrow spiraling into a storm around her. "No! Stop!" Emma shouted, pressing her hands against her ears, but the overwhelming noise crashed over her. The figure drew closer, eyes shadowed but glinting in the dim light, as though it surged with unseen energy. "Emma, face it." The word struck her chest like a lash. She stumbled back against a locker, cold metal biting into her skin. The memory was alive now, rushing forward like a freight train. She remembered a face, a name lingering at the edge of her consciousness. Mike. Mike? Her voice wavered, pulse rocketing. Is this about him? The figure tilted its head, sorrowful. You can't run from it. His truth is tied to yours. You must uncover what you buried in the depths of your mind. Emma struggled to breathe as visions swirled, darkening until everything became a blur. Laughter dragged her back, laughter that turned to gasps of horror. A body lying still beneath the moonlight. A school haunted by grief, the walls echoing the tragedy left behind, each locker holding a sliver of untold pain. A sudden flash illuminated the hallway, a fleeting image that shattered through the darkness, Mike's smile, light in his eyes. But in an instant, it vanished, like smoke beneath a flame. Emma. The figure surged forward, urgency etched into its features. You have to make a choice. Are you brave enough to face what you've repressed? What choice? She gasped, eyes darting back to the figure. What do you want me to do? The screams constricted around her again, a trap tightening its grip, and Emma felt reality slip further away. She couldn't remain, yet couldn't leave. The truth loomed sharp and cutting, forcing her to confront the shadows lurking in her heart. As another wrenching scream pierced the heavy air, echoing through the walls, Emma's resolve cracked. I don't know how to face it. Then you'll never escape, the figure whispered, the gloom pooling around them, closing in like a noose. For every heartbeat, a question lingered. What had happened to her? And what was Ridgewood High willing to take in exchange for the truth? Should she plunge deeper or turn back? Emma's trembling hands hovered over the journal, desperation clawing at her insides. Whatever happened next would irrevocably change everything. The darkness deepened, and without a clear answer, the choice loomed like a heavy weight on her chest. The gold-flecked pages of the journal burned against her palm, the heat of memories she hadn't dared to revisit spreading through her veins. Emma felt dizzy, the overwhelming tide of sound and emotion crashing over her like waves against a rocky cliff. Make the choice, Emma, the figure urged in a voice dipped in anguish, pulling her focus back. The shadows flickered around them, creeping like fingers along the edges of the dim light. I can't just face it, she screamed back, her voice cracking, frustration clawing at her throat. The familiar ache of fear churned in her stomach, evoking a longing to flee. What if I don't want to remember? But you have to. It's the only way to break free from this, it insisted, its anguished tone resonating with a truth she could barely acknowledge. The journal's pages flipped on their own, revealing hastily written notes that looked like desperate pleas, words that twisted in her mind. If lost, seek the truth in the dark. Emma's breath quickened. These weren't just run-of-the-mill ramblings, they were cries from a soul trapped in misery. With trembling hands, she traced the inked letters, feeling a pulse of recognition but resolutely shoving the memories back. I can't go back there. I can't. The figure took another deliberate step forward, the shadows pulsing around it. What happened changes everything, Emma. It changes you. You have to face it. You need to confront him. Confront who? The word made her heart race, a knot of dread coiling tighter. Mike. The figure shouted, frustration etching deep lines on its face. You've ignored the signs, followed the rhythm of your denial. You can't keep avoiding it. Flashes of warmth darted through her days of laughter, plans, and hopes. But then, the darkness would engulf them all over again. The thrill of promise shattered by a scene too horrific to linger on. No, no. Get away from me. She cried out as if it could protect her from the tidal wave of emotion that swept her, not just past memories, but raw, revealing dreams of what had been taken from her. The sound of laughter turned into whispers, and she swayed under the weight of it. Suddenly, the image sharpened into a solitary moment, Mike laughing, a bruise on his cheek, shadows flickering across their faces. A confrontation. It all began then. Emma, the figure reached for her, desperation surging. You can break the cycle, but you have to let it in. Feeling the urge to scream, she clenched her eyes shut. Memories clashed violently against each other, a tempest ripping apart everything she thought she had forgotten. A shudder ran through her. Something monstrous lurked just out of sight, tantalizing and tormenting. I refuse to remember. She roared, fists shaking, her heart drumming against her chest. But with each loud beat, the truth clawed its way to the surface, relentless and unforgiving. Suddenly, the surrounding shadows leaned in, mirroring her dread. The voices rose, weaving tighter, forming ghostly fingers reaching toward her. You cannot escape. You owe him, you owe all of us. Emma's heart hammered as reality twisted, and the air grew heavy. What if turning away would cost her everything? She opened her eyes, heart racing wildly. Maybe, just maybe, facing it would release her, give her the chance to rewrite the past that had haunted her for so long. That in that moment of clarity, she felt it a shift. Freedom or bondage, it hung before her like a vortex, ready to swallow her whole. Face the truth or be trapped forever, the figure whispered, eyes gleaming with urgency. But what truth was she about to expose? The shadows pulsed, drawing closer, and Emma braced herself, ready to dive into the storm, her heart blaring like a siren. She took a step forward, journal clutched tightly. Was she brave enough to step into the darkness? To confront Mike's haunted memory? She had one chance to reclaim her freedom. But would it be worth the price? As her foot shifted further into the shadows, the weight of the past beckoned her deeper, and the echoes of betrayal surrounded her like a mist. Emma inched forward, honesty filling her lungs, and in that heartbeat, the light shifted. What choice would she make now? The moment she crossed into the darkness, the world shifted. Everything bloomed and then faded, colors melting into an abyssal black. Emma gasped, the air thick and charged, tinged with an electric current of anxiety. The journal in her hands pulsed like a living thing, seeming to sense her fear and amplify it. Emma. The figure's voice sliced through the gloom, a beacon of urgency. Remember yourself. You're not just a shadow here. You hold the key. Her heart raced with uncertainty. The key to what? She blurted, feeling a small thread of panic unraveling inside her. To confronting him. To understanding what happened. The figure urged. Its presence shimmered in the half-light, a guardian of truth or perhaps a tormentor. Before she could respond, shadows erupted all around her. Wisps of memory pressed against her, clamoring to be unleashed. Emma could hear fragmented voices, whispers of a past that clawed mercilessly at her consciousness. Time waned and morphed, and she was yanked into a fragmented scene, her mind transporting her to that day. Bright sunshine poured in, illuminating a small park where laughter danced like leaves in the wind. But it was distorted, laughter turned into frantic cries, her past splintering as quickly as it formed. There stood Mike, looking troubled, his brow creased, the light of joy eclipsing into something darker. Emma, please. His voice broke through the buzzing storm surrounding her. It was raw, tinged with desperation and reality that sent shivers down her spine. Mike. She wanted to run, to shield herself. What happened? I can't. I don't focus. The figure called, shards of urgency slicing through her fear. This is just a memory, you can change it. You can face it together. An intense jolt of confusion gripped her. Both love and terror swirled in the air. She could see the image of Mike flicker like a dying flame. She forced herself to confront it, pushing against the instinct to look away. Emma. He shouted again, panic weaving through the tone. You need to remember. Otherwise, it consumes you. I need you now more than ever. The dreamlike atmosphere dissolved, swapping warmth for an icy chill. Those familiar eyes that once sparkled with hope were now breaking. You promised we would face everything together. Her heart sank, carving jagged lines through her soul as she dug deeper, seeking the truth that had been buried. Why had she been too afraid to remember? The shadows twisted tighter, squeezing her throat. I don't want to, I can't remember, Emma. The figure pressed in, voice rising above the cacophony. You can't change the past until you accept it. With a surge of unexpected resolve, she leaned in. What if the truth is too painful? The words tumbled out, cracking in the air, a mix of dread and determination. What if it's your salvation? Mike reached out, his hand trembling as the scene distorted once more, breaking apart under the weight of raw, writhing emotions. Then something shifted. The darkness peeled back like layers of an onion, revealing a cold hard truth that had been hidden under all those layers of sorrow and avoidance. I'm here, I want to leave. We can do this. But with the firm grasp of hope came an ominous rumble within the shadows, a low growl vibrating through the space around her. Emma trembled as the very ground felt alive with torment, morphing into something sinister and lurking. Face it. Unleash it, whatever it may be. The figure cried, its voice pierced the haze like a siren. Deep in her chest, the ache of dread mixed with a daring pulse of resolve. What would happen if she set the memories free? What horror awaited? Or perhaps, would it be her freedom? As the memories broke apart around her, filling the air with the scent of what once was, Emma felt herself sway at the edge of decision. Would she take the plunge into the remnants of her past? The shadows quivered with anticipation, and she understood, rooted in the heart of her turmoil, that the real battle was just beginning, and like that, just as she anchored herself to the moment, a crash of thunder echoed as the shadows lunged toward her, threatening to pull her under. Would she stand her ground, or would the darkness consume her whole? The moment the shadows lunged, Emma felt an immense force pressing against her, a tidal wave of memories crashing over her. She gasped, stumbling through the thick mist that clung to her like tendrils of ice. Flashes of darker times flickered in front of her eyes, images of friends lost, choices made in haste, and a future that had been cruelly stolen. Emma. The figure's voice pierced through the chaos, a lifeline in a storm. She clutched the journal close to her chest, its pulsating warmth contrasting sharply with the cold of the encroaching void. You need to confront it. Confront what? She nearly shouted, her voice drowned out by the cacophony of sobs and screams that echoed through the shadowy realm. The truth. Unravel it. The figure urged, desperation lacing its tone. With a jolt, Emma understood. The memories weren't just whispers of the past, they were shackles binding her to a pain she'd long run from. But they hurt. They scar. She could feel tears brimming in her eyes. Face the pain or let it consume you, said the figure, conviction lacing its words. You have the strength, find the truth in the suffering. The shadows swirled menacingly, swelling as if to drown her in despair. Emma turned toward the flickering images, each one a piece of her history, a clue to her buried emotions. A heavy heartbeat echoed in her ears, hers or the darkness. She couldn't tell. But she took a step forward nonetheless. As she moved deeper into the black, her feet breaking through the floor of shadows, a memory coalesced. It was Mike again, standing alone in that park. The laughter faded. His solemn gaze pierced through her, demanding honesty. You must remember that day. That day, the day of the storm. The unease stirred in her chest, an ancient fear awakening. The wind howled, tossing leaves like confetti of despair. She had tried to forget every detail, hiding behind well-constructed walls of silence. But she couldn't run anymore. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted. The chill of dread transformed into an oppressive heat. She saw flickering images, Mike's smile slipping away, a confrontation that shattered everything, the storm rolling in, and the fear that gripped her like a vice. Stop this! She screamed, feeling the shadows wrap tighter around her limbs. I didn't want it to end like this. But it did. The figure said sharply, cutting through her denial. It's time to make peace with it. With shaking hands, Emma opened the journal, the pages filled with her own handwriting, a testament to both her fear and her hope. And there, scribbled in the margin, were words that echoed from her soul, maybe if I told him, remember. Mike's image blurred, distorted by tears. You tried to reach out. You wanted to connect. The shadows swirled violently, a storm of anger and anguish. Face the truth. The figure's voice rose, drowning out the turmoil around her. Heart pounding, Emma pushed through the agony. "I'm ready," she yelled, the declaration spilling forth like a floodgate breaking. The darkness roared, thrashing like a beast in pain, as she let memories crash down like waves. Each moment, each regret, each glance at what could have been. She could feel the weight of it melding into anguish yet turning soft, a grotesque yet beautiful amalgam of life that she had shunned. Then came the crack, loud and deafening, like thunder cleaving the sky. The veil of shadows around her began to writhe and twist, as if they were alive, like angry tendrils reaching for a lost soul. A blinding light enveloped her, illuminating the chaos with brightness that stung her eyes. With one last surge of will, she shouted, "I won't be trapped anymore." Would the force of truth drive the shadows away, or would it summon their most terrifying aspects? As the light consumed her, Emma felt the journal grip her tighter, vibrating with raw energy, and she was left wondering, had she truly broken free, or had she just awakened something even darker? The light exploded around Emma, blinding and pure. Her heart raced, thundering in her ears as the world around her began to dissolve. The shadows writhed, their edges fraying like smoke in the breeze, while the journal pulsed with an intense energy that felt both familiar and foreign. "Don't let go," the figure urged, its features flickering in and out like a bad signal. "This is your moment." Emma closed her eyes against the brightness, but the journal refused to let her obscure the truth. It became a flashing beacon in her mind, illuminating memories she had buried deep. One by one, they surged forth, breaking through the remnants of space and time. She saw herself standing in that park again, the sun a glaring truth decorating the scene. The sound of laughter and joy echoed through her, but it was tainted with an impending storm of feeling she could no longer push aside. She had wanted to tell Mike everything, but hadn't he found the courage? Instead, she had watched as he drifted away, the space between them growing colder until it felt like an abyss. "No!" she cried out, fighting against the current of memories. "Not again." But the pull was too strong. The shadows stirred, a dark audience to her pain. They seemed to listen, waiting hungrily as the journal's grip grew tighter. "Mike," she whispered, the name slipping past her lips. The figure emerged again, solidifying for a fleeting moment, the urgency of its gaze meeting hers. "You have to remember how you felt." Emma looked down at the journal, now glowing fiercely. It felt like a heartbeat, urging her on. "I'm not afraid," she said, more to herself than anyone else. Yet a tingle of doubt lingered. The shadows quivered, their malevolence palpable. They swirled around her like a tempest, whispering secrets of despair and loss. Each word buzzed in her ears as if they were the breath of unfathomable horrors. "Let it end," she breathed. "Let it be over." And then it happened. A figure began to coalesce from the murky fog, twisting into something familiar yet warped. Emma gasped as she recognized Mike's shape. It was him, but the semblance was vague, distorted, reflecting her internal chasm created by dread and regret. "Emma," his voice was both a melody and a haunting echo. "You have to face what you ran from." "No." She stepped back, fear clawing at her chest. I can't do this." But even as she yelled out, she felt chains of regret wrapping tighter around her, squeezing, tightening, squeezing. She suddenly realized that this confrontation wasn't just about Mike, it was a face-off with every choice that had led her here. The shadows were her guilt and blame, swathing her in a cacophony of emotions she could no longer escape. "You tried to hold on," Mike's figure lamented, his voice a sad song. "But you can't keep running, Emma. You need to speak the words." Tears streamed down her face, cutting paths through the darkness. "I was scared." She managed to choke out, every word laced with heartbreak. "I didn't know how to make it right." The flickering light from the journal surged, intensifying her memories, demanding confrontation. "But you can start now." "Start?" she echoed. "How? By doing what? Losing everything again?" The shadows tightened around her, rising in fury as if responding to her defiance. The figure of Mike flickered, a flame about to be snuffed out. You think this is about losing? It's about choosing to live, to embrace your truth, no matter how painful. With a final shuddering breath, Emma took a step forward towards the dark mass around her, heart pounding furiously. It felt like stepping out of a fog bank directly into a storm. I want to remember everything. I want to feel it all. The shadows recoiled. Their chaos escalated into howls of agony, painfully beautiful. The light from the journal exploded, urging her forward. Emma pushed through the shadows, desperation propelling her onward. I won't hide anymore. The moment felt monumental, but would the shadows relent, or would they unleash their final wrath as she faced the darkest truths of her past, as she screamed, I want to remember. The world around her dissolved again, but not into darkness. Instead, it opened into non-existence, a void of possibility. What awaited her now? Would she find redemption, or had she merely awakened the fiercest storm of all? The void swallowed her whole, a swirling mass of color and sound that twisted into a disorienting blur. Emma felt weightless, as if she were floating above the ground, untethered from her past and future. Fear gripped her with icy fingers. Would this be her escape or her damnation? Then the world snapped back into focus. She found herself in a dimly lit room, the air thick with dust and echoes. Shadows flickered along the walls, mingling with the remnants of her memories. The journal lay open on a table, its pages fluttering in an unseen breeze, illuminating words that writhed like live things. She stepped closer, her heart racing. A single word leaped out at her: truth. The letters seemed to pulse, urging her to understand, to confront the unspoken parts of herself. She swallowed hard, doubt clawed at her as memories of pain wrapped around her like a suffocating blanket. Emma, a voice called softly, threading through the silence. It was a whisper at first, yet it surged with power, drawing her towards it. It felt hauntingly familiar. Face me. There he stood, Mike, shimmering in the dim light like a ghost from a forgotten dream. But this wasn't he, the distorted figure from before. This was the Mike she remembered. The boy who made her laugh, who felt like home. But sadness wrapped around him, defining his existence in this fragile moment. Mike, she gasped, emotions crashing down like tidal waves. I thought I lost you forever. We're not lost, Emma, he replied, his eyes searching hers with an intensity that made her heart ache. We are trapped in the things we never said. You need to speak the truth. The shadows stirred, menacing and alive, but she was captivated by his presence. His words beckoned her like a lighthouse in a storm. What truth? She asked, her voice trembling. How do I begin? By accepting what you feel, by letting go of the fear that binds you. His expression softened. You've been holding on to resentments, fears of failure. That's what keeps us apart. Emma hesitated, dread gnawing at her insides. Memories of their last conversation flooded her, tumultuous with anger, regret, and missed opportunities. But I hurt you. I pushed you away. Only because you were afraid, he said, and the shadows recoiled, faintly retreating. You can't change the past, but you can change how you let it affect your future. As his words sank in, the journal glowed brighter, casting dancing light across the dim room. The chaos around them quieted, shrinking back to a stillness that felt heavy with potential. Emma reached for the journal, her fingers trembling against the cool, smooth page. I need to tell you, she whispered. But suddenly, the walls began to quake, the shadows erupted with a roar, furious that she would dare confront the truth. The ground trembled beneath her feet as whispers escalated into shrieks of anguish. Emma! Mike shouted, his figure flickering. You must be brave. Speak it out loud. In an act of defiance, she drew a deep breath. I love you. I was scared of losing you, and it made me push you away. The air shimmered, and the room vibrated with the weight of her confession. The shadows gasped, recoiling further as if her words were sunlight piercing through a darkened sky. For the first time, they seemed unfocused, disassembling in the wake of her declaration, but darkness fought back with a vengeance. The temperature plummeted, the room groaned, and horrid voices clawed for her. "You think love can save you? This was always inevitable. I won't run anymore," Emma yelled, igniting a spark of defiance. "You can't take him away from me." As she stood firm, Mike's eyes shone brighter, fierce, and proud. "Together, we can break this." But even as hope surged, Emma felt uncertainty stab at her heart. What more lay ahead? Would her revelation be enough to vanquish the shadows, or did a confronting truth await that would test her very soul? And then, in that fractured silence, a new voice joined the cacophony, echoing ominously within her thoughts. "It's not just about love, Emma. What will you sacrifice to keep it?" The air thickened, and the storm of shadows roared, ready to unleash their fury. Emma realized that her fight was only just beginning. What truly mattered would soon be revealed, and she could only prepare for the reckoning ahead. With the shadows swirling in a tempestuous frenzy, Emma felt the weight of the world pressing down on her. Stripped bare before the essence of her own fears, she fought against the encroaching dread. "You want a sacrifice?" she yelled into the darkness. "Then I'll give you one." The air thickened, crackling with energy as the shadows paused, sensing her defiance. "What will you sacrifice?" A voice echoed, layered with bitterness. It dripped with the pain of thousands of regrets left unspoken, each syllable sharp and cutting. Emma steadied herself, her heartbeat booming in her ears. "I will sacrifice my fear," she declared, her voice resolute. "Fear has held me prisoner for too long." The shadows recoiled, their forms twisting grotesquely as if struggling against the truth of her statement. In that instant, the journal responded to her defiance, glowing fiercely in her hands, lighting up with words and images she had previously buried. Each symbol of her past danced around her, illuminating memories long thought forgotten. She saw the laughter at the park, the warmth of a hand held, and the turmoil of that final day when everything crumbled. "Emma." Mike's visage shone brighter, breaking through the chaos. "You have the strength within you. Embrace it." The shadows stirred against her, angry whispers cutting through the air, but she held firm, the journal thumping against her heart. "I will choose to remember. I choose love." With each declaration, she felt chains shattering within her, releasing the tension binding her spirit. The shadows surged, a whirlwind of agony and torment. They screamed, throwing their fury at her, threatening to engulf her whole. "You think your love can shield you?" "Not just love," Emma proclaimed, gathering the remnants of her courage. "But understanding. I will remember the hurt, but I will also remember what we shared. I want to let your darkness claim me." The air thickened, oppressive and fierce, before the shadows surged again, desperate to reclaim her. But as Emma focused on Mike's light, the heaviness lifted just enough for her to see a glimpse of hope, a path through the chaos ahead, shimmering faintly. "Together!" she shouted, reaching for him, and suddenly the memory of their laughter washed over her like waves revitalizing the shore. "I forgive myself for what I didn't say. I accept what happened." As the words flowed from her mouth, the shadows screeched, and the room shook, but Emma pressed forward. "I refuse to be a prisoner of my past any longer. I will not live in fear of your power." The shadows trembled, warping like shadows in the sunlight. She could almost hear their whispers turn from anger to confusion as the light from the journal and Mike enveloped her. Their power began to fizzle, the darkness struggling under the weight of her conviction. With one last push, she shouted, "We are more than our fears. We can change the story." It was then that the shadows responded, unraveling from their chaotic forms. The pain in their whispers began to ebb into silence. Just as quickly, light flooded the room, swirling around her to weave a tapestry of hope. Emma and Mike reached toward each other, their hands interlocking, strength pooling between them. The bond radiated warmth, a beacon piercing through the darkness. Together, she breathed, and as those words solidified between them, a powerful surge erupted from the journal, illuminating the room with blinding light, flooding it with clarity and grace. The shadows writhed one last time before dissipating into nothingness, a storm unveiling the serenity behind. Emma's heart soared as she felt the presence of 1,000 memories settle, no longer haunting but healing. She accepted each one, every joy and ache, casting aside the burden of resentment and fear. In the vibrant glow, a soft peace swept through the room. Emma turned to Mike, now solid and shining with acceptance. "I'm so sorry," she said, her voice trembling with truth. "For everything I never said." The corners of his mouth lifted into a gentle smile, illuminating the sadness from his features. "We're here now. And that's what matters." His warmth filled the space between them, wrapping her in an embrace of safety. As the room transformed, the shadows no longer darkened their world. Ridgewood's fate lay before them, a chance to redefine its narrative, crafting the truth into a legacy they could all embrace. Together, they stepped forward into the future, each hand intertwined, knowing they had broken the cycle. The winds of Ridgewood whispered a new beginning, the past released, but the lessons carried forward, woven into the tapestry of their lives. As dawn broke through the horizon, Emma took a deep breath, filled with relief and possibility. She had faced her deepest fears, reclaimed her truth, and together, they had chosen love over loss. And that was just the beginning. Before you go, this is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you won't miss the next exclusive stories that could change your life. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm and share your love for these tales. I want you to flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. I'm here for it. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support means everything.